This commercial is an opportunity for those of you who haven't seen the latest Saab, the 9000, to finally get a good look at one. Time's up.
Test drive the Saab 9000S or the 9000 Turbo at your local Saab dealer.
Welcome to the Saab in the Rearview Mirror podcast. I'm your host, John Christensen. This podcast is a celebration of all things Saab from the perspective of ex-Saab corporate employees who witness the day-to-day operations of one of the best company environments in the automotive business. It is an insider's look at the mostly good times at Saab, shared through the stories of those that live them. My time at Saab started in December 1984 and lasted just shy of 39 years, with my retirement in October 2023. It was a great run, and I look back with fond and fun memories, as do most of my fellow ex-Saabis, who I will be chatting with in the weeks and months ahead. Thank you for joining me on this road trip as we look in the rearview mirror at Saab. This podcast supports SaabParts.com and SaabGear.com, the exclusive supplier of Saab original parts and Saab branded swag. Even though Saab cars are no longer made, there are still 1 million Saabs on the road all over the world. Here in North America, the Saab legacy lives on to ensure you can access the parts and expertise to ensure a long and happy life for your Saab. Hi, welcome to another edition of the Saab in the Rearview Mirror podcast. My name is John Christensen, and today I am joined by a dear old friend of mine from Saab, who was with Saab from 1983 to 1992, and that gentleman is Eric Weiss. Welcome, Eric.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for doing this. I think it's a great project.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, keeps me creative, and it looks like we are looking into Eric's garage, and I'm trying to identify. Well, I know on your right, that must be your Willys Jeep spare tire.
Correct. Yeah. Still attached to the Jeep.
And what tell us about the Jeep? What year is that again?
That's a 1952 CJ3A. That's all stock. As a matter of fact, the spare tire you're looking at is the original spare tire from 1952.
How is it not all cracked and shredded?
It's got little cracks, but these non-directional military tires are just you can almost drive on them with no air.
Now, was that in military spec? I can't remember.
Well, the early civilian Jeeps all came with the non-directional military tires. This Jeep itself was in the Connecticut State Police, actually.
Oh, wow.
And we bought it in about 1983 at a state auction when they used to have them in Wethersfield, Connecticut.
Mm-hmm. I was to one of those once.
Yeah.
And the prices were outrageous. I remember.
Sometimes, yeah, but this thing must have been sitting in a garage somewhere in the state, and they decided to pull it out. Luckily, throughout its life, it leaked enough oil where it kind of preserved itself. So it was great.
Mm-hmm. And what car is to your left there?
To my left is a 1961 Comet.
Wow.
Not a Mercury Comet, just a Comet.
Really?
This was a barn find we found, and a woman bought it, drove it about 10 years. She got sick. It sat for 25 years in their garage. Jeez. And, it wasn't something I was looking for, but it kind of found me. It was so original. It's incredible. We had to go through, obviously, things that sat 25 years, but the body was rock solid. And it's an interesting car because of the story behind it. It was supposed to be a baby Edsel, actually. When the car came out in 1960, Edsel folded. So for 2 years, they sold these just as a Comet. If you open the door, it says manufactured by Comet. And they didn't put it into the Mercury fold to 1962. So it's kind of an interesting history.
And how long you say you had that one?
This one I've had about 32 years.
And how long a restoration process?
This one, probably about a year and a half.
Oh,
we did have to repaint the exterior because the paint was just too far gone to bring back. But most of the interior, under the hood, trunk, everything's all original. It's so bizarre that the woman actually even left the warranty sticker on the windshield. So
Nice.
it's so original. I think when I go someday, I'm gonna do the same thing that Clint Eastwood did in Gran Torino with the little sticker in the glove box. If you ever want to drop a V8 in this thing or modify it, I'll come back and haunt you.
Very nice. What quite a collection. So, any Saab still in the driveway?
No, not anymore.
When was your last one?
Probably the last one I had was my last company car which was like a 92. I think the last car we had was a 900 when they had a excess of them at
Mm-hmm.
one point. So
Yeah. Yeah, my last was an '07. I talked about it on an earlier podcast. When Spiker bought Saab, they did a port inventory and, hey, look, we found 30 cars. And they made them available to the employees. And I got a '07 93. The sticker it was a year and a half old. The
yeah,
sticker was 30 and I got it for 10. And then a couple of days after the bankruptcy, the lawyer got on the phone and said there will never be any more parts for a Saab. So panicky John went right to the dealer, kept my mouth shut, and said, take it and give me something else. What a mistake. Because 3 days later, the lawyer said, oh, we made a deal with the parts. There'll be parts again. Like, son of a bitch. I'm driving I think it was a 2011 Impala with 20,000 miles on it, and it was a Penske Corporation company car. Like, the big option was air conditioning. I'm the worst decisions with cars. So anyway, terrible. Well, before we go into the Saab years, I always like to start way back at the beginning, and it's always a typical podcast question. Where were you born and where did you grow up?
I was born in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, and I kind of grew up between Albany, New York, and Pittsfield, Mass.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah,
How did you wind up in Connecticut?
my dad ended up getting a job. He was a on the road salesperson, and he got promoted. And the company was based in New Britain, Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
So we moved the clan down, and I ended up finishing up school at Central Connecticut. So and then Saab. So
What did you study in school?
I took. I have a bachelor of science degree. It was a program called Industrial Technology. I really was looking for a 4-year automotive degree, but the closest you could come was industrial tech, which was a mixture of business courses and technology courses. Prior to that, I had an associate degree from Hudson Valley Community College. That's a community college in Troy, New York, and they had a great automotive program.
So you knew that you wanted to be in automotive from an early age then?
Yeah, I was one of the kids that brought a spark plug to show and tell at kindergarten. So, yeah.
And was that instilled by a family member or?
Somewhat, yeah. My dad was always very mechanical, and I think that ignited my interest in it.
Mm-hmm. Good. Now, where did you work right after school?
During college, I started getting involved with English sports cars when I was in high school and going through college. I got involved in SCCA road racing.
Wow.
I worked on some crews. I became a pit marshal, so I was working at a lot of races, and that really cemented the relationship for me. So, we did work on sports cars, Triumphs, MGs, and then I also worked a year in a mom and pop auto parts store up in Massachusetts.
Was this at racetracks or like the SCCA thing in
Yeah,
parking lots?
SCCA.
Or?
No, we did all kinds of things. We had road rallies, crosses, but mostly road racing at Lime Rock.
Oh, wow. Was that an expensive hobby even back then?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. All racing is, right?
It still is, but it's sad now because you go to a race and the cars that were hot at the time now are all vintage racers. So.
No, right. Did you ever have a race car?
No, I did a lot of autocrossing and time trials and stuff, but I could never at the time afford a full race car.
Yeah, that's definitely a money pit for sure.
It is.
Wow.
It is.
So when you did auto parts there, that's where you learned about parts at an auto parts store. I never did that. I was always amazed. How do people do that with all those different brands? I mean, how to become an expert on 50, 100 different vehicles? It's just, I thought I knew a lot about Saabs, but
It was funny
nothing
because
else.
back then it was a lot different. It's not like you walk into an AutoZone now and they just punch something in a computer. I mean, you did, like you said, you had to know all the different lines, who made what, and look them up individually by the components.
Yeah, and of course the paper books, which was
Yeah,
those counters full of paper
big
manuals.
counters, and then the inventory used to be on cards. So
All
at
right.
the end of the day, you'd have to go through and look at the card file and make little notes. You sold one, you need to order one, whatever. So it was a lot more involved than it is now.
So this is when you got to Connecticut, this is still in New Britain you were living at the time?
We ended up in Berlin.
Berlin, okay, right. And did you know somebody at Saab or saw an ad to respond to? Or?
Actually, I was looking after I graduated from Central, looking for full-time positions. And an ad showed up for Saab for a senior consumer relations person.
The word senior was added to that. Huh?
Yeah.
What did that mean?
I wasn't sure.
I never heard that before.
Yeah.
Because what people don't know is that I followed in your footsteps, but I don't remember it being used the word senior in that job. But that's interesting.
That's what the ad said. So it was interesting. But yeah.
So that's again, Saab was in Orange, in the headquarters.
The main headquarters, the Eastern Regional Office was upstairs as part of just the side part of the national office.
And that's where you interviewed down there?
Yeah, with Will South.
Okay. Was that your first time ever seeing that building?
I saw it from the highway before, and I knew they were in the area, but that was the first time I was ever inside of it.
Yeah. Did you know Saab at all, the brand, before that?
I was somewhat familiar with them, probably more so the older cars from the two strokes to the V4s, but it was a little bit of a culture shock seeing how new and how far they had come since then, from going into the luxury car segment.
Right. Because I think everybody knows that in the 70s, it was like, oh, maybe your history professor had a Saab 99 or something.
Exactly.
That was the image.
Yeah.
And then was it 81 or so? They really started exploding.
Yeah, growth. 79, 900. And, when the turbo came out.
Yeah.
I remember seeing them. The cars were eating up the class in the showroom stock racing. At the time they came out, they had a class where it was called showroom stock. And that's exactly what the car was. You couldn't change anything from the way the car came from the dealer. And the Saab's turbos came out and they were just killing everything.
Was the front wheel drive odd for people to race in, or not?
It was a little unique because a lot of even the smaller import cars were still rear wheel drive then.
I can't remember seeing any front wheel drive racing except some rally stuff. See old videos and stuff, but no, I never got it. Well, I did take a 9000. Remember the old ride and drives? I took that around Pocono,
right?
And that was fun.
Yeah,
and front wheel drive, but that was on tarmac. You had a Skip Barber guy next to you. You couldn't go crazy, but it was still fun.
Yeah, no, I remember the ride and drives. Yeah.
So when you started, who was in that department?
It was funny because Bill Wolf was in it originally, and he had just gotten promoted to be the district service manager up north. And so when I got hired, it was just myself and Karen Nobile.
Okay.
And between the two of us, we did everything. And this was all, as you're aware, having done this before, at the time, it was just phone calls and typed letters.
Yeah, yeah. Did you have any support staff, or was it just the two of you?
We had a secretary to help to type out the letters and everything. Yeah. But the two of us went through a lot because we were there as things kind of exploded with sales. And
this is prior to having a southern region separate, right?
Correct.
You had the whole East Coast,
we went from Maine to Florida,
which was the bread and butter, of course. New England always was.
Yeah.
At least down to maybe DC or Virginia. And then when I was talking to Dale David, people forget that was back with the 12 and 12 warranty.
Yes.
And
Well,
man,
it was actually 12 unlimited.
oh, okay. Why did I think 12 and 12? Okay.
Yeah, it was
12
12
unlimited.
unlimited.
That's right. It
So
was,
I
which
was going
wasn't
to,
bad.
no. And we had a lot of salespeople and people on the road all the time who really got their money's worth out of those warranties,
Right.
this unlimited miles.
I forgot that. Yeah, because you taught me and I wrote so many, sorry, you're out of warranty letters. And there was like no goodwill budget and all that. So
No,
I'm,
and
I'm getting a little ahead here, but
yeah.
backing up was the two of you. So you had how many dealers a piece back then?
Well, we didn't split them up.
Oh, okay.
We just took customer concerns as they came in.
Okay.
So then tried to divvy them up early, but I remember we were so busy sometimes we would all take stacks of letters home and
Wow.
try to knock some out at night or something because
Yeah.
it was just getting overwhelming before they hired a third person there.
What were the major complaints of the day? I remember the seat heater issues. What
Well, the
happened to
seat
that?
heater issues were always interesting
Oh,
because
yes.
we would get a great amount of suits and dresses sent into us, all with a similar pattern on them.
Hmm.
So they finally put the on-off switch on the control because back then it was automatic. So if it was cold out, you sat in the seat, it had a switch that turned the seat heater on. So as I say, we all became a little bit of clothing experts, and it wasn't, it was always the expensive clothes. It wasn't ever like a pair of Levi's or something.
No, right.
You
What
know,
was the one somebody tried to send in? I remember the story. It was a mink coat, and they said it was worth like 20 grand. And I don't know who it was. Somebody got it appraised at a furrier in the Haven. The guy goes, "It's $500." It was garbage.
so the seat heaters were one issue. The other issue I painfully remember was a chipped reverse gear.
I barely remember that one, but that's when you
Well, it was
slammed it into
clear. I think
reverse,
by the
right?
time you got in there, it was resolved because they synchronized reverse. But the problem was people would buy the cars, they would come to a stop, turn the car off, and they would just slam it into reverse quickly, and with the car still rolling forward. And it could chip the reverse gear. So all of a sudden you're getting this clunking sound in your transmission.
Mm.
And unfortunately, at the time, if you did that, it was not covered under any kind of warranty.
Mm.
Later on, they finally gave in and agreed to do one time if it happened. But telling somebody who just bought a brand new car like a month ago that they've got to pay for a transmission overhaul was not pretty.
Ouch.
Yeah, that
I
would
kind
hurt.
of, you're jarring some old memory cells here. I do kind of remember that. But that was so different, putting the car into reverse to get the key out.
Exactly.
So different.
And people were rushing all the time.
Yeah.
So they'd slam it into a gear and
because mine first was an 84 manual,
yeah.
and I was probably guilty of that, but maybe it was synchroed by then. Anyway, so this is what time? This is what part of the month of 83 when you started?
Yeah, I started pretty much the beginning of 83, I think, like end of January, something like that.
Okay. So you were doing that almost 2 years before I started. Mine was December 84.
Okay.
And when I came in, Angela Leibowitz was there. I remember.
Right.
And I think that was
she was with
you and Karen, and that was it, if I remember.
Karen and I, and then we hired Angela, I remember.
Okay. And I remember my first day, I think I met you in the region. That's when you had moved out of the main office. When did you move out of the big headquarters?
Well, let's see. No, when you came into consumers, weren't we still in that big and tall men's store?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
How long were in there?
We were in there, and then I went across the hall because I started that parts thing.
Yeah. But it was funny when I started and I met Walt Lawson, who hired me, and then met Will South, and went across the hall and met the staff I'd be working with. And it was like nobody asked or said, "Oh, nice to meet you." It was, "Do you smoke?" because back then smoking was allowed.
Yeah.
And the consumer relations side of the building was all non-smokers.
Yeah.
And the other side was all smokers.
Yeah, and I
And
remember I had to live through that. Yep.
sadly, you got shoved
Yeah.
over there. But just to back up here, I mean, Eric, well, who made the decision to start a parts helpline?
Well, I had heard about the job, and at that point, after 2 years of consumer affairs, you get pretty toasted. So I was looking to make the next step, and I had heard about this position opening up that Carlton Dingman in National was getting overworked and couldn't do his job, so they wanted to pass it off to the region. And it sounded interesting, and I jumped in.
Gotcha. Okay. I wasn't sure where it originated from because I came in and took your old job and then you moved across the hall but you were dealing just again with the East Coast dealers,
Eastern
right?
region, yeah, for parts assistance.
They must have been excited to have somebody to talk to finally, directly, just there for them, right?
Sure. Yeah, because like I know as well as I do how the microfiche system back then was not the easiest thing to work with.
Yeah. That was an interesting way of technology. And I love when there was an error and you had to line up your microfiche card on a piece of paper like a checkerboard and take a little red dot with a fine
Yeah.
permanent ink pen. And then when you go back to put it in the machine, if you didn't let the ink dry, the red ink would get all over the lens. It's just like, what am I doing here? Or it would blur all the part numbers where the red ink was.
Yeah.
Oh, that was amazingly older technology. And I
Yeah.
remember there was a computer for parts, which was pretty advanced.
It was at the time.
Yeah, it was still pretty basic. And we also had, wasn't it, you had a dial up, you had to set the phone and a receiver to make that computer work.
Sometimes.
Really old technology.
Yeah. There were old Sperry systems then.
And that was the first time I ever learned what dictation was for the letters. I had never written a business letter in my life. And to let the cat out of the bag, you had given me a bunch of your sample letters. And I plagiarized your letters for 2 years.
Well, I think we all plagiarized each other's letters for that.
That's true.
You had the standard no letter, and this and that.
Right. Yeah. Thank goodness. But it was like people kind of, at least from my customers, they got to feeling that it was a form letter, and you get some angry phone calls. Like, I didn't write you to get a form letter. God damn it. What else beside the gear? I remember on the 8 valves, the separating the pulley would.
Oh yeah, we had
that was a big issue.
Yeah, it would separate and drive itself into the oil pump sometimes, and all of a sudden you get a big oil leak. And then one summer, I remember we had a heater fan issue, and on the 900s, the fans were squeaking. I think they were Electrolux at the time. And then the answer was they bought Magneti Marelli pumps or fans. The shaft, they would start overheating and the shaft would get so hot that the squirrel cage would fall off.
Jeez.
So you went from this little problem with the squeak to this major problem where all of a sudden you didn't get any fan at all. This was in the middle of the summer. And I don't know if you remember Ken Adams. He was the treasurer and everything. He calls me up and he said, "What's going on? I need to get a fan for my car." I said, "You and about 500 other people." Because
so they were on back order, obviously.
They were on back order and so people in the middle of the summer didn't have air conditioning or anything. So that got a little ugly too. The other big problem, though, I just heard talking about it, was Sony radios.
Yes, I was just thinking about that.
Yeah.
Was the 81 to 83 cars, I think?
Yes, before they went to the Clarions.
Right.
And that probably did more harm for the Sony Corporation than anything I could think of, because they were just so upset about that. I'd never buy a Sony product again. And
how did that ever get past testing or out of Sweden? I don't know how.
It was crazy because you played one good song. we used to joke, if you played Another One Bites the Dust, your rear speakers in the three doors, they were small, they'd blow right out.
Oh my God.
It just was a mishmash of specs for the system.
I kind of remember it was the engine noise you heard.
And there was
all
there was engine noise interference too. There were these kits they came out with to ground everything, and then better
and the
speakers.
noise suppressors.
Yeah.
And then none of it really worked, if I remember.
Not very well.
No.
There were people wrapping things in foil and all kinds of stuff.
And I remember a couple of the field reps had determined that if you took, at that time there were cores on even the speakers.
Right.
And if you strip the car of speakers, amp, and radio head,
yeah,
and you got the core value, which was maybe $250, and then they would go buy the accessory clarion units and put those in the car. And it was almost an even swap. And that was the trick to helping out somebody who was fed up, and rightly so. But it was amazing. It's like people didn't care. They were still buying the cars like crazy.
Oh yeah.
Right?
No, we had waiting lists. But funny story about the Sony radios. Remember, we used to, when we were in the main building on Saab Drive, once in a while we'd actually get a visitor coming in to talk to us about his car with an issue.
Oh, sure. That's
so
fun.
One day I had these people come in, and it was a Sony radio complaint. And I'm there, there might be a few little issues with, and we used to have the warranty parts testing on the first floor near the warehouse. So while I'm trying to explain, it's a little bit of an issue and stuff, the kid comes out with a cart full of Sony radios.
Oh my God.
And pushes it right in front of these people.
Oh,
and the guy says, "Oh, you don't have a problem, huh?"
Oh my God! So they were all marked as Sony boxes or something. Oh my God!
It was like the worst possible timing you could think of, but it was unbelievable.
Yeah, I remember we were all so happy when Clarion came out in '84.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh wow, I forgot about all that. That was just not fun, and you really felt for these people because you knew what they were going through.
Oh yeah. No, absolutely.
Well, I remember my '84 base car had no radio and no AC.
Correct. Yeah.
And I had a buddy from high school that ran a stereo shop, and I had an Alpine system put in. And back then it was like the biggest speakers you could get. So we cut massive holes in the deck, that removable deck, and he put an amp in the glove box. And everybody was jealous because I had this top of the line Alpine system, and it's like that's no Sony or anything. So.
Yeah.
But of course, Saab was also easy to steal the radios.
Oh yeah.
I had the pull-out box at the time. Everything came out, the whole radio, and you'd hide it in the spare tire area. Yeah. Because I think somebody told me once that you could literally like yank a Sony out with a credit card, just flip a little tab or something. And
I don't know. They used to destroy the dashboards. I remember because when they would break into the cars, dashboards were on back order too for a long time.
Jeez. Oh my God. Unbelievable. So now it's December '84, and you gave me 3 days of training, and you went across the hall. And then I never saw you again.
I went out in the field after that. So.
Yeah, it was like you get thrown to the wolves. But going back, I mean, you're the guy that started the parts supply. I don't even remember that time we were in a meeting, and I got up it was a dealer meeting, and I got up to speak, and you were there, and I said, I want to give credit where credit's due. And here is the man that started the parts helpline, Eric Weiss. And then I joked, we have a plaque on the wall with his photograph. It says, our founder. It got a laugh. So, but now you did that quite a while, but how did you just get free reign to run it the way you felt?
Actually, I did. It was actually kind of set up the rules of it with the district parts managers about when somebody should call, when they shouldn't. I was in and out, going to the warehouse all the time to check stock on things and see why this part had the wrong number on it. It was pretty much free reign.
Do you remember the kind of call volume you were getting back then? Was it exponentially increasing?
It was exponentially increasing. The secretaries in the region used to always joke that I had the most phone calls of anybody during the day.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. that, of course, that's even before there were headsets. We had to hold the phone in the
Oh yeah.
crook of our shoulder. And
Oh
oh,
yeah.
wow. That
Yeah.
was, I remember trying all kinds of different phone rests and pads. And
Well, that while you're trying to look up something on the microfiche with somebody.
yeah.
Yeah, we didn't have speaker phones or headsets or anything.
Oh, man. And did you log every call or it was just move on to
We
the next one?
eventually I started to, because
Yeah.
if we saw somebody kind of abusing the thing instead of really learning it or taking their time to
Yeah.
try to find the part, I would let the district parts manager
Yeah.
know, hey, next time you're into this dealer, please see if they need some help, because they're kind of monopolizing things.
Yeah. You know, now that you bring that up, that was still when I was doing it too. And I couldn't feel too bad for these guys with multi lines. Like Saab was 5% of their business, and the Chevy guy
Yeah,
got thrown the Saab stuff. So you felt bad for him. But yeah, then there were guys that called 5 times a day. And it was like,
yeah,
dude, did you even try? You
yeah,
know, so,
exactly.
and a lot
Exactly.
of them didn't. But so you're over there in that half of the building, but were you still doing that job when we moved to the Lambert Road,
No, I
the
was,
big region?
yeah, I
You
was,
had to be, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
no,
you were there.
originally I was there, and when I became a field rep, that's when I left that building.
Right, because we moved over to Lambert Road, and that's when Parts was upstairs and Scania was the end of the hall, and
Right.
you were way in the far corner where
Way
I
over on
eventually
the,
also
yeah, if
wound
you were
up.
facing the front of the building, way over on the right.
Right, right. That was, and I don't know why it made me think of this, but that was the worst bathroom situation I ever saw in my life. You had cubicles 3 feet out of the bathroom door. There were no fans, and there was a grate in the door. There was no privacy. Everybody knew what was going on, you know. And I felt so bad for the person in that cubicle next to the men's room,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah,
And it was like,
yeah,
well, who designed something like this? It was
yeah,
crazy.
that
Uh,
was.
and that was about, so it was about a year in the over the big and tall store, about a year in there. And then Walt Lawson came to me and said, those who don't know, Walt was in charge of the region. And he said, I think
You
Eric's going to
regional
go into
manager.
yeah,
Yeah,
Eric's going to move up and on. And would you be interested in doing that? And of course, that freaked me out because I knew nothing about parts. And then you just were getting comfortable in customer relations. You know, I was. But are you ever really comfortable? Because like the next phone call,
yeah.
somebody could explode on you, you know.
Could put you on the edge.
But so I said okay, and then I think I sat with you again another 3 or 4 days before you became which part of the country? Was it the Connecticut rep, or you had to move?
I covered Connecticut.
You're very
This,
lucky you didn't have to
that,
move.
that was this Mike Rafowitz, who was covering Connecticut, took Marty Pryor's place as the regional parts manager.
Okay. Now, had they opened the southern region by then, or they were thinking about it? Or,
I,
I think
I,
so.
I don't know. Do you remember if you covered?
I remember like the southern region dealers would call and they tried to put a stop to that because they had created the southern region, but the southern region
Yeah,
didn't have a parts helpline.
no, it might have been around the same time though.
Yeah. So who were you working for when you went into the field job?
I was working for Will South again.
Okay, so he had the field reps. I don't remember that.
He was the Eastern Regional Manager at the time.
Okay.
And so consumer affairs, he was responsible for training and the field staff.
Okay. I'm remembering the timelines here. And then I think I did that a year to like the end of 87. And that's when they moved me to Meriden with the warehouse that had just opened. But they said,
Yeah,
do your job on a national basis because it was already becoming that. There were too many dealers calling for help and there was no help. So they would send them to the regional, me.
yeah.
So it was kind of like, okay, you're going to go national. And that's when they gave me John Lear for 3 months to help out. But then the volume kind
Okay.
of stabilized and I was able to handle it alone, I think, if I remember right. And there was another gentleman that helped out. So you're in the field as a service rep or parts
Yeah.
rep or
Service
service
rep.
and part service rep.
Service. Back
That's
then,
when,
back then it was separate. Service and parts was a separate rep.
okay, that was
Well,
before.
I was in the field with Al Hook was the sales manager, and Tommy Letourneau was the parts manager.
Okay, gotcha. And when did they merge those two jobs? Was it in the 90s?
That wasn't until when I was actually regional manager.
Okay. So again, I'm getting ahead of
When
myself here. So how many dealers did you
it
call
was
on as a
after
service?
one of the, it was later on, Connecticut and Rhode Island.
Okay. And I think we cut out a little bit here. How many dealers did you call on?
I had 15 dealers between Connecticut and Rhode Island.
Okay. So did you have the advantage you were home every night?
Other than sometimes when I was in Rhode Island, I would stay overnight and hit the other dealers all at one shot.
Yeah.
But
And I only traveled as a possibility of getting into that job. What did your day entail when you showed up at a dealership? What was going on there in your position?
well, you were the boots on the ground with the dealer. I mean, when they thought about Saab, you were, depending what specialty they were doing, sales, service, or parts, you were Saab to them. So you would come in, you would meet with the dealer principal, the service manager, with the warranty person, go over everything and make sure they're up to date on things. We had to scrap warranty parts sometimes to make sure the dealers were keeping up with it. A lot of times you'd go in and they would have a line of customers that needed a little extra assistance with things, or some of the things we had to look at, like if it was a paint problem or a glass issue or something, we had to inspect it. So they kept us busy, and you would have a list of priorities to try to go over with the dealer. So they would, again, keeping everybody up to date, trying to meet with the dealer principals sometimes was interesting, but it was an interesting job.
And this is back, if I remember, you had a contact sheet had to be filled out during every visit.
Contact reports,
Contact
absolutely.
reports,
Yeah, they
yeah.
were all handwritten, NCR papered, and so we had to write them. And then when I became a regional manager, we had to read them. So,
And you're visiting those dealers every couple of weeks, once a month, or?
yeah, usually about once a month for most of them. The real busy dealers, you might go to 2 times a month, or if there was any ever Mayday things, you'd have to run out. I remember the end of the month, we used to, no matter what discipline you were, sales, service, or parts, they would have us go around to all the dealers and collect, they used to call them the SSDR cards when they sold cars. So at the end of the month, they would be all counting them and see how many cars they sold for the month.
Gotcha. Now, were you there in the time? I remember the standard equipment for warranty scrapping. They gave everybody a mountaineering pickaxe or something.
They came up with the idea of exchange radiators, and so there was a core charge and everything. But instead of having you send the old radiators back, they had the field reps, the parts reps at the time, go to scrap them. And I'll never forget, I think it was Tommy Letourneau. He goes to do the first one, hits it with his little pickaxe, gets crap all over him. And I think that was the last time we ever did it. You were supposed to punch holes in them.
I remember seeing those, and I'm like, holy crap, that thing is a weapon and a half. Want to get a little sheath and a tool belt for that. I mean, oh my God. But people didn't understand that there was, I don't know who, but I'm sure people were scamming warranty. Eventually they were warranty auditors.
Oh yeah.
And that parts were never really failed, and they would reuse them or resell them or something. And
I'll tell you a funny story. I was at one dealer one day and scrapping parts, and they had a tail light that they said there was moisture in from a Saab 900. And I'm looking at it. I really couldn't see anything wrong with it. So I put it on the ground. And I think the next thing I picked up was a brake rotor and just dropped it on it. And the look on the parts manager's face was like, oh my God. He was waiting to take it home. It's funny.
Oh my, I don't know. But there was a couple of dealers, obviously I would never name them here, but something like, why did that dealer have 50 claims this month for an AC compressor, and the guy 20 miles away had 3.
Yeah.
Something was going on,
Yeah.
And I guess that was probably rampant in the industry. I don't know how it's even controlled now. I'm sure
It's controlled exactly now with computers. I mean,
yeah, that's true.
You get these analysis now of everything. It's almost too much information to deal with.
Yeah. I remember we had warranty auditors, and people go in, I hear stories that they would bill back the dealer, mega numbers, maybe 6 figures. I mean,
if somebody was really bad and, taking advantage. But, again, I think most of the time it wasn't out of theft that people did this. It was more that they just didn't know how to fix the cars and were taking a lot of shotgun guesses at things.
Was finding technicians back then as difficult as it is today, or was it
nowhere near as difficult as it is today?
Yeah.
You had guys that, there was a lot better interest in it. And it was a lot easier then than now.
And it was a lot less computers to diagnose and even on the cars.
Very little. Little.
Yeah. Very mechanical car.
Yeah.
So you were that rep for how long?
I was in the field, I think maybe almost a year and a half, 2 years.
Not long.
And not that long. And Will South ended up getting some promotion to the national office. So the regional service manager job came up. And I applied for it. I wanted to try to move up a little. And it was, I didn't know if I had a shot for that job or not, being very young then, because most of the regional managers were a lot older. But we had a new Walter Lawson got replaced by a gentleman named Bob Stogstill. And he was very interesting. And we had talked. And I when I went in for my interview with him, I brought a list of things. I said, Bob, if you hire me, that's great. If you don't hire me, these are some of the things that I felt that myself and the other field reps really needed. And he was impressed by that. So I ended up getting the position.
And that was what year? Do you remember by chance?
Oh,
late 80s?
Yeah, not maybe 80s. Let's see, maybe 87, 88, somewhere around that.
I should interrupt here. Are you getting eaten up by bugs in your garage now?
A little. I'm all right.
All right.
Yeah.
So they're still on Lambert Road, if I remember right.
Correct. When I first started, I moved back into where Will's office was.
Okay.
And I can't remember if I never really had responsibility for consumers at that point. I think before that, they had taken it into the national office.
And how many reps reported to you?
Oh, God. I was trying to think.
That's a good question.
I think I had about 13 or 14, and then we ended up having 3 tech reps. And
right.
I was responsible at the time for the training center. And it was a lot to handle at the time.
And it hit you all at once. So that's a lot of responsibility, and a lot of varied responsibility. I remember talking to ex-trainer Dave Kapp. He said they got bounced around their departments so many times to working for different people. But of course, it was the growth too, right? I mean, everything kept reorganizing.
We did keep growing for a while. I mean, you could see the employee list just keep getting longer and longer.
Yeah, and there were a lot of internal promotions and a lot of outside hires too. And
Correct.
I think with other guests I talked about, we tried to count how many different buildings we had at one point. I mean, it was a large number between the training and warranty and testing. The regions, I don't know, 4, 5, 6, and there was Saab South.
And then we bought the training. When I was there, we opened the training center up in New Hampshire, Salem, New Hampshire.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
And then we also opened the one down the street in Milford.
Yeah.
Where I think that's where the region ended up toward the end. In that training center building.
So things were pretty good for a few years. I don't remember that sales were too bad in the early 90s, but was there any writing on the wall that things were going, as they say, south? Or
Well, you could see the yuppie momentum, so to speak, was starting to slow down a little. we didn't have people calling and complaining that they couldn't get a car or anything like that, which we used to have quite often.
Yeah.
And, you could see it slowing down. The competition was getting better out there. You had BMW, Volvo, and they were starting to catch on more. Mercedes came out with a lower price car. So you could, like I say, the competition got.
And we had a lot of great product. I mean, the 9000, say what you will, it was still a good car, and we had the
9000
16
was a
valve,
great car.
yeah, turbos, and
Yeah.
and no more 8 valves, and you got into cars getting airbags, but the worst had to be those automatic seat belts. God, I hated those, as everybody else did.
They were terrible. Yeah.
The worst.
I forgot about them.
Yeah. And I talked with other people that were there toward basically it was the end of the Connecticut era. Were you in that meeting when they announced the big change, or?
Well, well, the region, we weren't involved in it directly, but obviously we heard about it from everybody right away. And
you guys survived a little past that, the big move to Georgia, or?
No, I left before that. I left
there...
right before the final days in Orange.
Oh, okay. So they had not completely shut it down then?
No, but they decided to reorganize the regions again. There was a lot of politics involved at the time. Yeah. And my whole crew that I worked with, as far as the regional managers, Bob Stogsdill, Mike Preston, we had Tony Antask, Tommy Letourneau, Paul Tuberty, but they decided to let them all go. At the time, I was the only one they kept. They offered me a field position in the Boston Metro at the time. And I had just bought a house, and my wife was pregnant. And I could kind of have the feeling with GM getting more involved and everything, that it just wasn't going to be the same. Yeah. So that's when I decided to part company.
And I really had no idea you were there less than a decade, really. So for some reason, I thought of you as being there all through the 90s. I don't know why, but maybe
I was on the other side of the fence.
So, yes. So we'll talk about it after Saab too.
Yeah.
But just going back to that period of time, what was your favorite period of time when job?
Well, I think it was being the regional manager. I got to do a lot of interesting things, traveling to the dealers in different parts of the country. And it was quite an experience. And it was interesting. I really enjoyed meeting with some of the dealers. We had quite a whole variety of ethnic groups running dealerships and, different backgrounds, different locations. And I really thought that was so unique with Saab. I mean, for example, we had a dealer in Woodstock, Vermont, which only allowed one car dealership in the whole town, and that was his. And his dealership, basically his showroom, was a converted house. So it fit right into the surroundings. It's not like today where all the franchises are cookie cutters. We had a dealer in Pennsylvania, Clues and Strawbridge. And I remember going there and visiting him. And they have boats and cars in the showroom. And
I remember that.
Understand
boats.
It.
Yeah.
So I got talking to him, and I found out that they took Saab on when there were two strokes, because during the winter, their boat mechanics didn't have anything to work on. And they figured the two strokes Saabs, they knew how to work on them because they worked on outboard motors all the time.
Oh, my gosh.
And that's how it ended up having boats and cars there, which is just so cool.
Different. I'd forgotten all about that. That's a great memory. That was an interesting dealership.
Yeah.
That's
but
funny.
I never, once they explained it, it made perfect sense.
Yeah.
But that's what was so neat about, we had so many different converted gas stations to, major corporations owning a franchise. It was really interesting. And
I remember first visiting a Zumbach in Manhattan. I mean, that was a shock and a half, never having experienced that in New York City.
Right.
And all those different levels, like you're in a parking garage or something. And
no, exactly. And those dealers couldn't offer like an oil change special or something because it was cheaper for somebody to come in and have their oil changed every day than the parking garage. But Funny story when I talking about Woodstock, Vermont. We had one of my field reps, Ed Torello. He was a New Haven city person.
Mm-hmm.
And when I first took over the regional manager's job, he was up in New Hampshire and he in Vermont, and he visited the dealer in Woodstock, and his name was Dale Johnson. He was actually the volunteer fire department chief.
Mm-hmm.
And aside on that too is that Michael J. Fox bought a big place up there at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually bought the fire department a truck, a new truck.
Wow. Wow.
So it was cool. But Eddie's up there and Dale's showing him this truck and everything and telling him all the stuff, and it holds so many gallons of water. And Ed's there, he's looking at it, he's a little puzzled. He's there, why do you have to take the water to the fire with you? Don't you just hook up to a fire hydrant? He never caught on to the country life up there.
Yeah.
And he would call me. He's there, you got to get me out of here. I need to go back to a city. he was a character.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He was in consumer relations for a while.
Yes, he
too.
was. Yeah.
Working for Karen Novine.
Karen. Yeah.
That's funny. God, I forgot. All these names are just coming back up. It's amazing how much I've forgotten, but those memory cells are still there.
Well, that's what was so neat about the company. I mean, it wasn't, for example, it wasn't a warranty department. It was Jerry Plant and Dale David. If you needed technical, it was Dan David. If it was parts, you talked to Carlton. Legal, we had Marie Gessler. If it was advertising, Peter Burla. If it was public relations, we had Len Lonergan and Steve Rossi. And it was more people than departments, when you worked inside that building for a while, which was really neat.
One guy I'd like to mention who was just terrific, and I know you were friendly, was tech rep Arnie Mielda.
Oh, Arnie, yeah.
Oh, I met, I think, my first day, and just the nicest guy. And I'd love to get him as a guest, but he's hard to get hold of. Have you heard lately? He's still touring in an RV.
Is he really?
He has no permanent address.
Good for him.
Apparently he has like a big bus RV, and he and his wife are going all over the world. Or the country.
He was always camping and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was a true gentleman. He was amazing working with the cars and the dealers. Yeah. And one of the nice things too, if I can aside for a minute, that I got to do as regional manager, which I was very proud of. We had a 9000 that had kind of an electrical meltdown. And he and Mark Bailey, I remember, I had them fix up the car, and I was able to get the dealers in the upstate New York area. And I was able to donate the car back to Hudson Valley, where I had my automotive degree from. And it was really great to be able to pay him back like that.
That's great.
Yeah.
It's a great story. Yeah, that was, at least with those guys in my experience, like if you had a problem, they were going to solve it.
Oh, yeah.
They really were going to solve it, which was wonderful to have people like that on staff.
It was great having those guys because, when some of these cars got stuck, I'd just say, hey, Arnie, we got one down here. Boom, he'd be on his way.
Yeah. And never upset kind of guy, always calm.
No, he always stayed pretty calm.
Yeah, well, I hope I get to speak with him at some point.
And very tolerant of some of the technicians.
Yeah, he saw it all, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, he did.
Did you get to go to Sweden at all when you were working?
Actually, luckily I did. I got to go twice. When I first started in consumer affairs in 1983, they called it a educational trip to Sweden, where we got to go over and meet with some of our contemporaries that were doing the same job, which was very interesting. In talking to the Swedes who never heard of a lemon law or anything. Mm-hmm. So that was good. And then I got to go again, I think it was in 1989, and I got to take my wife. They had this Springtime in Sweden program.
Oh, yeah. I remember
where
that.
It was a dealer trip, and all the dealers had to buy a Saab convertible, and they had little plaques on them and everything. Mm-hmm. But that was a great trip, too. And, they were so hospitable, taking it to the aircraft factory and everything.
Oh, wow.
They had a display of the Vigan and all that, so it was very nice.
Yeah, I only got to go once, but it was great, and they were, like you said, always unbelievably hospitable. And always knew how to give a good time. I remember the dinners took a while. We'd show up at the restaurant at 6, so we didn't leave till 10.
Yeah.
I was like, geez, I'd like to call it a night, guys, but they didn't know what that was. And I think
Yeah.
somebody told me later that, well, they were on expense report, John, so they were going to spend every penny on that expense limit. So, and of course, and that in Europe, the restaurants, I mean, you had to ask for the check. It never came, and
Right.
they didn't rush you out. So.
Well, it's funny in the trip and the learning trip in 1983, they had one night where it was like a crayfish party. So you had all they gave you to eat was pretty much crayfish and aquavit. And that turned out a little bad for a few of the people. Some people got way out of hand on that one, where one individual had to write a apology letter to the mayor of the town. And it was
Oh my God.
it was interesting.
I think Mike Rathwood said, he said aquavit's like tequila, it sneaks up on you.
Yeah, well, the trouble is once it starts tasting good, it's too late.
Yeah, I remember the first time I ever tasted it. It was not smooth. I remember you kept it in the freezer.
Yeah, as soon as it tastes good, though, you're in trouble.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. The ugly Americans visiting Sweden. Yeah. That's great. What was your favorite Saab, either during your time or after?
I always loved the 9000.
Yeah.
When I was working, they came out with it. I just thought it was very ahead of its time, comfort-wise, driving-wise. I just thought it was a real nice combination, and it turns out that's really the last true Saab.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember getting my mom a 95 CS that was a training center car, but they'd only done it for diagnostics, so it hadn't been taken apart 500 times,
Yeah.
And then getting one of Bud Watson's training cars down in Maryland for my sister, and also a 95. And they were great cars. I mean,
they were.
And you got such great deals on them.
Yeah.
And I remember the radio had that little 1x2 inch little number pad you could take off for security reasons. And make the radio wouldn't work without it. So put it in your pocket until you sat on it and cracked it or something. This question was submitted by a previous guest. When the 900 hatchback, when you put the seats down, what was the craziest thing or the biggest thing you ever drove around with in your car?
I put pretty much a whole Saab in one time. We were doing a donation in New Hampshire to a technical high school. And I had to drive from Orange, Connecticut with an engine, transmission, all kinds of parts. I mean, the car was barely off the bump stops. And made it all the way to New Hampshire like that. So
wow. Yeah, we never had any helper shocks, well, maybe they were trailering shocks, maybe back then, but
well, they came out with the Nevo mats after a while.
Oh, okay.
Self-leveling, but
right.
It's amazing the amount of things you could put in those cars. Absolutely.
4x8 sheet of plywood flat, I remember. One of my favorite questions to ask people is, in your time, any brushes with greatness, celebrities, sports figures, anything like that?
Not directly, but I remember that we did hire somebody at the time out in California to get our cars into the movies. And if you remember Christmas Vacation, the neighbors, when they pull in, the yuppie neighbors driving a new Saab 9000.
That's right.
And we always laugh.
Louis-Dreyfus.
Yeah, and we always laugh because when the car pulls in the driveway, you can hear the brakes squeal.
Oh, now I gotta go watch it again. Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, and then she got us into a lot of TV shows and stuff. It was really interesting.
Yeah, that must have been a great job. But remember then, I don't know how long that job lasted, but you get a highlight reel every year, a videotape of all the shows and and the movies that it had made it into, and it's still fun to see them. You can still find them out there, even in more recent movies. I mean, they're still out there.
Oh yeah.
But it makes you sad because usually, if you see a Saab, it's going to be wrecked in the movie. I'm like, well, there goes another one.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. On a sadder note, of all your coworkers that we've lost, who do you miss the most and why?
Oh, I think one of the ones I miss the most, like a lot of us do, is Bob Sinclair.
Yeah.
One of the things that impressed me so much at Saab was the first day I started in consumer affairs. I stayed a little later after everybody left because I was setting up my desk and everything. And all of a sudden, this guy comes over and he says, "Oh, you Eric?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, welcome aboard. I'm Bob Sinclair." And he just came over because at the time when a new employee started back then, they used to send out a little blurb to all the employees about him, a little newsletter thing. So he kind of knew about my background a little. And I went home that night and there, you could go work at GM, Chrysler, Ford, your whole life. And you're never going to have us come out your first day and introduce himself to you.
Yeah.
And he just, his work hard, play hard approach was great. One of the first letters I had one time in Consumer Affairs was a guy who wrote in that his engine blew up because he was driving somewhere and his warning lights came on, but he didn't feel it was safe to stop. So he kept driving till the engine let go. I think it was out of warranty anyhow. So again, wrote him the nice no letter. And then he writes back to Bob Sinclair. And when he wrote back to him, he writes on American Airlines stationery. Turns out he's a pilot for American Airlines. So Bob calls me in the office. So I explained to him what we did. He said, "I'll handle it." He writes the guy back a letter, and he basically says, "I see from your stationery, you're a pilot for American Airlines. I hope you pay better attention to your gauges when you're flying your plane than when you did when you're driving your car." So
Yeah, he told it like it was to customers.
Yeah.
That's funny. Oh my God.
I
But
love
yeah,
that.
that's the thing. I mean, well, I had to get home, but the light was on,
Yeah. And
So
the other one is his contemporary with Sten Helling, still working in the business. I think of him all the time because he always, and I'm sure you remember, whenever we had any things, his thing was treat the dealers well. They're the only ones that can buy our parts and cars. And they're our customer. You take care of them. And so many other franchises now have lost that. Those words always keep coming back to me.
so true. And sadly, he just passed away this year,
Yeah. Yeah.
recently. Yeah, it's sad how many we have lost, but then you start looking at the calendar and it's been a lot of years. Yeah.
Well, we were the youngest people,
Yeah. Yeah, I was only
and
a year out
it's
of
funny
college.
because a lot of us, some of the locals here, we get together at Christmas every year. And I keep
Mhm.
saying to Dan David and Steve Rossi, we're like Doolittle's Raiders. Every year you have the toast and there's going to be one less glass because we used to have Lon Lonergan show up, Alex Lima, and,
Mhm.
they're gone.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. And the next reunion is not till next May, so you don't know how
Yeah.
many are going to be around, and that is true. I was just yesterday looking at, I was only made one of the reunions, and it was maybe 10 years ago, maybe 15, and looking at all these photos, and it was like, I don't know half these people are, but
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
also because I never worked in the main office. It was always out secluded warehouses. But then you look at, I know that these people aren't around anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're all getting older. Where does the time go, right?
I know. It
Yeah.
flies.
So tell me about, you left Saab
Yeah.
and unemployed for a while, or you went
I
back to
worked
work?
at a couple of retail dealers, and then I got a call out of the blue one day from Charlie Secor, who had a Saab dealership. And he
Mhm.
said he just picked up a Volvo franchise and he really needed somebody to run service and parts.
Mhm.
So I said, that sounds good. I said, I'd enjoy getting back with the Swedish cars again. And 32 years later, I'm still there.
Wow. And this is, people don't realize that's in New London,
New
Connecticut,
London, Connecticut.
right?
So he was I met him when I did consumer affairs, but then I was his field rep for a while. And,
Mhm.
we always stayed in touch.
And does he or his family still own it, or is it
He's
changed
still
hands?
he's still active in it,
Wow.
and yeah, and his daughter is starting to become more involved in it too.
Mhm.
Right now, we have a Volvo, Subaru, and we took on Lotus, which has been fun. Right now, they're on a roll. They've come out
They're on
with
a
a new
roll.
car that's really, really nice, the Emira. And
Mhm.
it's a full circle for me because I started with English sports cars, and
Right.
now I'm ending kind of with English sports cars.
Mhm.
So it's been a interesting ride.
Yeah. And are you still seeing any Saabs for service, or is it all
At this point,
gone away?
my last guy I had is pretty much retired. So
Yeah.
and they are just getting very hard to work with because
Yeah.
problems we knew when the cars were fresh. Now we're getting all kinds of different things that they're getting older, and
Yeah.
it's really difficult to find anybody with any expertise on them anymore,
Yeah.
or even the tools.
Yeah, that is true. And New England was always the bread and butter, and you'd go back there and you just couldn't believe how every other driveway had a Saab in it for a while. And where you guys were located and the other dealers on the Connecticut coast and the Boston area, it was just amazing. I mean, everybody had a Saab, everybody, and loved them. And people ask me, like, what did you do before you retired? And everybody has a Saab story. Oh, I had one. Oh, I had one. Oh, my neighbor had one, and
Yeah.
my kid had one. And
Well, again, first front wheel drive, smaller cars around from till Subarus and stuff really started getting popular. They had it.
yeah, I think I read somewhere that a lot of Saab customers, when we stopped making cars, went to Subaru.
They did.
It was a popular substitute.
They did, and we've seen a lot switch to Volvos too.
Yeah.
Once Volvo went front wheel drive and all wheel drive, they've become very popular.
Speaking of all, my sister about a year ago started leasing an XC90 and just loves it.
Yeah.
And she was so funny. She says, "Oh, I guess I'll collect Social Security and I can make the payments that way." So that's what she did.
Good for her. Yeah.
But she just tells me stories. I've not been in it, but she just can't believe it with the Google voice assistants, and it's just phenomenal.
Driving. Yeah.
Yeah.
Semi-autonomous. Now they came out with a Gemini addition to the Google system, which is an AI thing. So you can almost have like a conversation with your car while you're driving, about world affairs or whatever. It's just amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, they really love it. And I've only been a passenger in an old Volvo, but never any new ones.
Yeah, no, they've come a long way.
I wanted to touch base on a person at Secor's that passed many years ago, and that was your parts manager, Rich. Was it Rich Parrott?
Rich Parrott, yeah.
Last name?
Rich.
And I knew him for many years, and he passed suddenly, I remember. And how long was he at Secor's?
He was, at the time he passed, he was probably there about 25 years or so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And nice guy. And
yeah, he was.
Talking about. And the reason I bring him up, because I remembered this story about being with one of the dealer meetings. I think it was at the Foxwoods Casino. And
I remember that.
At the time, my brother and I were heavily into a video game called Warbirds, which was flying computer simulations for World War II fighters and bombers. And I got Rich hooked on it.
Oh.
So he had just got the software, and we were at lunch, and we're coming back from lunch, sitting in the chairs, and he pulls out his computer bag with the laptop and pulls out his joystick. And he goes, "Come on, you got to teach me stuff about flying the B-17. And I'm like, "I've been playing about a year." So the meeting wasn't starting for 20 minutes. So he started it up, and he's taken off, and he's flying over Germany, and he's the pilot. So I'm the instructor. And I noticed there's like one or two guys maybe watching, because it was different. It was, 90s. And so I'm like, "Okay, well, hit that. And then you'll jump into the bottom ball turret gunner position." "Oh, that's great." He's blasted away. And I'm like, "Bandits, 3:00. I'm yelling into the computer and him, and he's turning the guns. And then we're playing a while, or he's playing a while, just having a good time. And suddenly he said, "Okay, we're going to restart the meeting." And I go, and I turn around. There's 30 people behind us watching the video screen of Rich and I playing this video game. Like, oh my God, I'm like a recruiter for a video game. And he got into that for a while. That was funny.
Oh, I remember that meeting well.
Yeah.
Because that's where the guy finally got up and he said, "This isn't Saab anymore. This is GM." Remember that?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Because we were saying, well, Saab did it this way. No, this isn't Saab anymore. This is GM.
I remember sitting there in my GM boss stood up there.
Yeah.
And he looked around and he goes, "Do you know how lucky you are?" And they were like, "What?" And he goes, "John's still in the United States. You should be talking to somebody in the Philippines." I was like, "Gee, I feel real good." Is that the plan? Is that coming? Panic mode, because that's GM. I think at the time, consumers could only talk to someone in the States if you had a Cadillac. Everything else was outsourced.
Really? Jeez.
But yeah, that was a company culture shock.
Yeah. Yeah, it sure was.
I think that was the meeting where I got in a lot of trouble because I showed a collection of Saab commercials from around the globe. And they're all on YouTube. And I found this one from Finland when the 4 Finns went to a sauna in their 9000.
I remember something.
And they got locked out of the sauna, and it's the middle of winter, and they ran to the Saab. And of course, you saw their bare behinds, right?
Right.
Well, somebody complained to GM HR that should never have been shown in a meeting.
Oh my God.
And I felt so bad because I was trusted to do this video presentation and nobody checked it ahead of time. And I didn't think anything about it. I thought it was fairly innocent, but
yeah.
Wow, somebody at GM did not like that. And I remember my boss at the time took the heat, and I was like, "Ew." But those meetings would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, but the contradictions were funny. Even when Saab was still Saab, I remember. Do you remember we got on the Tom Peters thing on Search of Excellence?
Yes, Search of Excellence. Yeah.
We got the tapes where we're going to go out to the dealers with it and show people how they can really thrive and well-organized teams. And one of Tom Peters' things was, if you have reserved parking spaces in your building, you might as well just quit, because that's such a downer for morale. Mm-hmm. So right around the same time, we had a new human resource person come on board. And what was the first thing he did? Reserve parking spaces by what position you were closer to the building.
Oh my God. I remember that now. What a great memory cell
that was fun.
Sparked. Because I used to show one of those.
That always stuck with me.
Yeah. Because I used to show one of his early lectures to new employees and said, "This is what I expect of you." And he exampled companies all over the United States that were fantastic. And I was like, this is how you need to be. And it was a great way to get through to people. Watch this video. So,
yeah, it was, but it's so funny that we did just the opposite.
The opposite.
When we're pushing that.
That's great. Too funny. Too funny. Well, as we're winding down here now, we just want to say you're still at Secor's, right? You're still
still working every day right now.
And any charities or volunteer groups you'd like to promote or mention?
My son, he works for Camp Sunrise. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's kind of like the hole in the wall camp.
Oh, okay.
And he's a teacher's aide during the regular school year, but during the summers he works for this camp, and it's for kids with cancer and stuff. And he does a lot of online stuff for these kids that can't physically go to a camp. And he's been getting all these celebrities and things lined up to talk to the kids. So I'll give a shout out to him on that. It's amazing.
That's great. Any website we should mention, or?
It's just Camp Sunrise. So
okay,
but it's
Google search.
It's really a good thing that he's doing with the kids. So
good for him.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Great. And lastly, any closing thoughts about your time at Saab?
I guess just in general, it just shows you that what a strong leader and motivated people can really do. We're such a small percent of the auto business, but I think for what we did a hell of a job at the time. And we all felt strongly toward the product. And again, with the leadership with Bob Sinclair, it just really made you proud to work there.
Because otherwise, we wouldn't be here still talking about it.
Yeah, how many places are going to have these reunions?
Exactly.
And have people come from all over the country to get together again. Well,
my plan next year, I plan to be there. That's my goal.
Oh, good.
So May 15th, I think, next year. And,
or if you're around at Christmas time when we do the dinner sometime, come out to that.
Yeah, I remember the last one I was at, you and I had talked ahead of time. It's like, I think it was your idea. So, John, you got to get a hat that says Soul Survivor from Connecticut or something. So I had that custom-made hat made up. And it was funny to you and me, but not many other people. But I'm
Yeah.
like, this hat cost me $50 to get custom made.
You were the last Saab employee, if you really were,
The original
of the original Connecticut crew.
Yeah, crazy.
Absolutely.
I had a boss at the time. He said, John, you'll be there when they turn the lights out. But I didn't make it that long. They're still going. There's still 5 or 6 employees.
Yeah, it's dwindling though, it looks like.
Yeah. We know down here there's still quite a few because there was a strong dealer in Naples, and all the snowbirds would just garage their convertibles 9 months.
I was going to say the convertibles down there.
Yeah, you can still find them low miles, and when the snowbirds are here, I see Saabs.
Yeah,
and
interesting.
It's fun to see them again.
Yeah,
I don't know who, like you said, where do you get them work done? That's the hard part. Well, Eric, I can't thank you enough for doing this. I appreciate
Thank you again. I think it's my pleasure, and it's great that you're doing this because it should be archived.
Yeah, posterity, and I thank you for working through all the insects that probably are eating you alive right now.
And I guess I got to apologize. I'm the one who got you into
it. Our founder, folks. Well, thank you for my career, Eric.
Not a problem.
All right, my friend.
All right.
Thank you again. We'll see you.
Right.
Memories fade and stories get embellished with time. The views, information, and opinions expressed on this podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of the Saab and the Rearview Mirror podcast, its producers, or affiliated organizations. This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be considered as professional advice. Under no circumstances shall we be liable for any losses or damages resulting from the use of this information.